Let's go. Maybe to start, you can introduce yourself and describe your business in a few sentences.
I'm Anoop Nannra. I'm the co-founder CEO of Trugard. We are a real-time smart contract risk and intelligence data platform. I have been in the blockchain space almost 10 years now. Started my journey at Cisco, where we built our own layer one, deployed that around the world. I'm Anoop Nannra. I'm the co-founder CEO of Trugard. We are a real-time Web3 smart contract risk and threat intelligence data platform. I have been in the blockchain space almost 10 years now. Started my time at Cisco, where we built our own layer one. We looked at blockchain technology and fundamentally realized that it was a networking technology that has some really interesting intersection with cryptography and storage. And so we started building out some really phenomenal capabilities, some use cases. Then also went to AWS to run the blockchain partner business. Did that for a few years, and all throughout that journey, I've been fortunate to meet and work with some of the most brilliant people in this space. While I was at Cisco, I launched and ran the world's first blockchain and IoT industry group, which was a phenomenal organization. When we started it, we really wanted to ask the question of what would blockchain and IoT look like when these two very disparate technologies were smushed together, and what kinds of use cases could come of that. And I would argue that that was the precursor to the phenomenon that we know as DeepIn today. I also helped start the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance when a number of us circled Vitalik in the hotel lobby of the Hyatt Shanghai, where DevCon 2 was the venue for DevCon 2. And we really said, hey, we should think about doing an Enterprise Ethereum edition or support enterprise use cases for Ethereum. And in true Vitalik style, he said, yep, that makes sense. And that was the start of Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. So been in this space for a while. I've seen a lot of things, and I've been a long time critic of the lack of cybersecurity, threat intelligence, and just adherence to how do we improve safety and security and advocate for users in the Web3 space. That was the primary motivation for starting Trugard almost 2.5 years ago.
That's very impressive, actually, and still on the same page, actually. When we review a bit of the growth that your company had in the past past years, we're really impressed by your growth. Like you've been growing very fast with a very small team. Can you maybe tell us a bit how it happens? What is the secret ingredient that makes you so strong on that side, and that's basically allows you to progress and advance at such a fast pace?
Well, I appreciate that. Our business is fundamentally driven by technology, and so, like with any good company, you need to be thinking about how do you scale with technology as opposed to people. For us, it's very important that we bring a degree of rigor from an engineering and technical and research mindset, and building out the platform in such a way that it is kind of ready for enterprise grade or enterprise scale use cases. For us, it's very important that not only does the technology scale up very, very well, but it also scales down. And we have a very solid understanding of what our, electronic footprint is in this space, and how do we, effectively use technology to scale different aspects of our platform in the right way. When I tell people about some of our stats, the question I often get is, how many people do you have? You must have 40 people on your team. And the reality is, we don't have anywhere near that, right? We're a very small team. We're barely pushing, double digits on our team size. But, for us to be able to onboard and index over 21 million smart contracts across 7 networks, identifying over 1 million contracts that, have some degree of risk, and identifying over 65,000 wallets that are constantly deploying malicious smart contracts. I mean, you can only really do that in a fully automated way if you know how to write good software to begin with, whether it's on the platform side or on our inference engine and machine learning side of the equation. We spend a lot of time making sure that we understand the footprint of our software and kind of what it takes to scale. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is the fact that we can take our entire technology stack, which scales beautifully in the cloud, and we can run it on 2 Raspberry Pis. That's really important from our perspective because not only does this allow us to set ourselves up very nicely in kind of the classical Web3 context, but in this new era of DeepIn, there's an opportunity at some point where we might explore the operationalization of our software stack to be run in a what I call decentralized SecOps model. There's a lot of very interesting benefits that one can achieve and obtain when we truly take cybersecurity in the Web3 context and operationalize it in a fully perimeterless operational model. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and our platform is designed to support both ends of the spectrum.
Very interesting. But it means that your tech must be really at the top level compared to the competition. So how do you end up with such a good tech? And since I assume that the answer will be that you have a good tech team, how do you find the right profiles and how do you keep them with you?
That's a great question, and that's something that we also struggled with at Cisco, which was how do we find the right kind of talent? There's a certain degree of rigor and expectation that folks have when you're at a company like Cisco and you're trying to produce something new and innovative. And at the time, this would have been like 2015, 2016, 2017. You couldn't go and hire a blockchain engineer. Like it didn't exist. That role, that discipline didn't exist. And so for us, what we said is let's actually dissect what we think would make for an ideal, blockchain or digital assets engineer. And we broke it down to where we said, okay, well, we need folks who understand not just how to build or write database applications, right? We need folks who actually understand how data is validated between multiple writers and multiple readers, and the internal mechanisms of how a database manages conflict. And so, that's one bucket of engineers. The second bucket of engineers we found was, do folks really truly understand cryptography, right? So it's one thing to employ, a cryptography tool set or, key management tool set. It's another thing to actually understand what are the fundamental mechanics of cryptography itself. So that was the second bucket. And the third bucket was, we wanted folks who understood, truly understood distributed computing, right? The fact that there are nodes on a network that, may be co-resident, they may be on the same network, or they may be thousands of miles apart. How do these appliances or nodes actually communicate with one another? How do they synchronize the reads and writes from a database perspective when you have thousands of miles between nodes? And then how do you ensure data integrity and security of the underlying data itself? And so we said, if we can find, anyone that has two out of those three pillars, I would say, from a training or education or just know-how perspective, then we can bring that candidate up on the third pillar. And so that kind of mindset of, how do we break down the actual skills that we need and apply them to, Web3 security is something that we had to learn. We know they're smart. They'll figure it out. No, we were very specific on the kind of skills that we wanted to bring onto the team. And then also, how do you now apply that in a relatively new use case, right? I mean, being able to identify, the risk of smart contracts at scale is not something that had really been done before, as we were aware of when we started TrueGuard. And so, new use case, slightly new data set, but the same kind of core talent and core skill set is what we really needed. And this is a fast-moving space. It's evolving at an alarming pace every day. And so, that's one mechanism that we kind of leverage to our advantage in retaining our team. They're always looking at something new. The new and novel thing is generally has some gaps from a cybersecurity perspective.
I have one last question, which I believe is going to be a bit more of a free flow kind of way of answering. But I heard a lot of things about your vision on Web3 and on the fact that it is important to democratize or re-democratize Web3. Can you maybe explain this concept and maybe formulate it better than what I just did?
Sure, absolutely. So, going back to my days at Cisco, one of the reasons that I got into this space was that I viewed the technology from a socioeconomic perspective. And the technology, in combination with, the relative availability of open source and just the ethos of blockchain and digital assets and crypto was really intriguing. There was no kind of central body or organization leading the charge. There were a lot of people innovating in the space at the same time, working off of each other's work, learning off of each other. When I stepped back and I looked at all of this, I realized that this phenomenon of decentralization was actually, democratizing innovation itself. And when I realized that, it became very evident to me that the volume of economic impact that would come as a result is something that we probably haven't really clearly articulated very well as a space. And I just really realized that as developers, as enablers, as practitioners in this space, we don't truly appreciate the volume of economic and societal good that this technology can deliver. So everyone is still learning, everyone is still building, and we're now seeing, the mainstream markets start to pay attention in a significant way. Now, if I step back and I look at where we're, just part of my journey over the last 10 years in this space, I feel like we need to really think about the re-democratization of this landscape. And what's driving me to kind of comment on this is the top news in any cycle in Web3 or digital assets is predominantly about the movement of whales, crypto whales. If I sit back and I look at this, it kind of reminds me of the early days in the US when the folks who were driving the news cycles were the railroad barons. There's a lot of capital tied up with a few individuals that are, fundamentally they are driving change at a national scale at that time. But again, the notion was that there were only a handful of individuals doing this. And I kind of see the news cycle, every day in our space. Everyone's trying to figure out which whale is going to move, which tokens or assets where, right? Which whale is going to sell or acquire new tokens or new assets. And I think we've kind of gone away a bit from this technology as being a socioeconomic enabler for every. And I would love for everyone to become a crypto whale. I mean, that's I think the promise of this technology. But I do feel that we need to be celebrating more the builders in this space as opposed to paying keen attention to, what are the whales doing, right? And I hope we get back to that. So, I think that's something that I think we should all be looking out for is, let's give the builders due credit for what they have built, what they have enabled. Of course, many of them have become whales, but that's because purely of their intent in this space and their diligence and their perseverance. But as these new market entrants come in, I'm starting to see that or sense that the landscape is shifting a bit. So, I think that is something that I'm paying very, very close attention to and really pushing the narrative, from a TrueGuard perspective of, we want to enable the next 8 billion people to come on board into this digital assets landscape and fundamentally, deliver the reality that, or the vision that, we all go back to the original white paper of what Satoshi Nakamoto wrote. How do we actually deliver that in a fashion where it is truly applicable to everyone and everyone has access and everyone has the capability to become their own market maker, to create, their own mechanisms of wealth and value creation. But also, it's not all about money. We also have to pay attention to how are we actually improving the human condition using these kinds of technologies. And I think we can do that. But I think we also need to have I won't say checks and balances. I think we do need to be able to sit back for a minute and realize where we are, where we want to be, where we need to be, and does it align to the original vision that was detailed in the Bitcoin white paper?
Anything else you wanna cover actually? Any other aspect of your business that you want to highlight, or any other specific?
So one of the things that we feel sets us apart and kind of aligns to the narrative of how do we enable anyone to, jump into this space as a producer, as a consumer, as just even a listener, is this notion of how do we actually instill confidence in users, so that they can actually begin their digital assets journey. And in doing so, I think one of the things that is really important is that we think about,
How we make sure we onboard more people?
I know what I want to kind of cover. So one thing that I think is really important about our business is that we are making the proactive decision to not do everything on our own. We have a very talented, very smart team. This team has built amazing things in the past, but we are laser focused on enabling safety and security through the thing that fundamentally controls and manages the issuance and creation of digital assets, that being smart contracts. But I'm always a big believer in building minimal viable ecosystems. And so what do I mean by that? Right. So as a company, TrueGuard, we have decided that, we're not going to do everything on our own. We can't, as much as I would love to. And again, we have some brilliant, brilliant people that work with us. We want to make sure that we actually have a broad set of opinions and stakeholders who are fundamentally aligned to the key vision of how do we bring safety and security for everyone, no matter where they are in their digital assets journey? One, fundamentally, TrueGuard is not an audit firm. TrueGuard does not monitor transactions, and we focus laser focused on smart contracts. That said, we did create a Web3 security coalition such that, if there are projects that do need audits, or we've identified, just TrueGuard has identified that a particular contract could be improved. We've got an audit partner in this coalition that we can bring in, and users can work with them to improve their software development capabilities in this space. Similarly, because our mandate is cybersecurity oriented, we know that cybersecurity is always a continuous cat and mouse game. And so what we've also done is, for things that do fall through the cracks, another member of the Web3 Security Coalition is a company that is one of the world's best in crypto cybercrime investigations and asset recovery. So we've got FIO on one end helping discover and improve smart contracts and help, enable, additional security risk and research in that risk. But then also on the other side of the spectrum, with Match Systems, we've got a member of this coalition that is amazing at asset recovery and investigation. So, lo and behold, now what we've got is a minimum viable ecosystem that has users covered from discovery to recovery. How do you discover good projects? How do you discover whether or not the software that has been written for those projects is actually good? How do you discover if there are any threats or risk in the ecosystem? And then, if for things that do fall through the cracks, we've got an amazing partner and coalition member in Match Systems. So literally from discovery to recovery, we are advocating on users' behalf to have this minimum viable ecosystem in place so that we can support users no matter where they are in their digital assets journey. And the reason why that is fundamentally important is that as three separate entities that are unified by this vision of advocating for safer, more secure digital assets journey, we can innovate on our own tool stacks and our own technologies independently. But we have the ability and the capacity to exchange data, exchange collaboration, artifacts and whatnot. And that only goes to improve the safety awareness that we can deliver to market for any user, whether they're a retail user or an institutional user, right? From our perspective, they're all stakeholders. And it's almost independent what their role or responsibility is in this space. We want everyone to feel safe and confident in delivering the kinds of outcomes that they want to deliver for themselves. And therefore, we have established this coalition, and the coalition will grow, but it started somewhere, and this is something that we've done as a value add, we feel, to the Web3 community.
Is it okay if I use the name Web3 Security Coalition? Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's exactly what it's called.
Thank you very much.
Is at the patio.